Yeah, I think we're probably not expecting a lot of direct impact from the carbon tax itself, but I suppose what we've seen is that in recent times there's been a bit of a holding back in some areas of decisions, investment and so on. The whole issue of the carbon tax has been brewing for a long time, and that's effectively resulted in a little uncertainty. The main thing we expect to see out of the carbon tax coming in is actually setting a clear signal, getting us on a pathway where it's okay to actually be a bit more ambitious about what we're doing. And then I expect we'll see a lot more opening up in terms of people being more accepting of perhaps challenging briefs and driving some of the innovation around low carbon design a lot further, because they know that that is really the pathway for the future. We will probably tend to see a lot of the indirect impact through building materials, particularly energy costs, but just the cost of building buildings is likely to go up. Now, I suppose we've been expecting for some time there'd be an upsurge in the existing building refurb market. We probably haven't seen that to the extent that we maybe would have anticipated. So with the carbon price coming in, we can expect probably a more of an upsurge in that. And generally with the overall push towards treating carbon more seriously in the industry, I think that'll contribute to that. But more so, I think generally there's a lot more pressure from a lot of angles around the existing building stock, because it's our biggest untapped area of improvement in carbon, most cost-effective way of improving our carbon effectiveness, certainly through the IPCC. So we will see some upswing in that, but in terms of new building stock, I wouldn't expect it to be greatly impacted. We've seen significant changes through with energy codes and other issues that have effectively driven up the cost of facades of buildings and cost of building buildings. So that will, I believe, get taken into account, and it'll continue on largely with minor impact, but not as major impact. Where we are seeing some things that may impact is life cycle costing of building materials, of carbon footprints of buildings is starting becoming more common, and that's where you see people probably making more intelligent choices around the type of materials they use, particularly where there is a carbon impact. So things like timber and other less processed materials may actually get an uplift in terms of usage in buildings in future. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of emphasis with new building construction now, looking at the cost of energy, looking at what it will be for outgoings. While it's still a minor component of owning and running a building, it does have a very high priority in terms of design. And particularly the way the property industry has developed, the market is really calling for greater efficiency, high performing buildings, both the tenant market and the development market. So that tends to drive a lot of that design incentive. I wouldn't say across the board it is improving, and there has been quite significant improvements from previous practice, but we've still got a long way to go to bridge the gap between what is world's best practice and what we're actually achieving on the ground in most cases. There are a number of different areas. One of them certainly is we've got to stop just looking at building by building. We've got to start looking at cities, we've got to start looking at communities, and how we can utilise the attributes we have within those cities and places to actually work better together. So there's been a lot more emphasis on precincts, but whole city plans actually need to be developed around energy, around water, around how we can manage those resources so much better. Because at the moment, the way our utilities are set up, they're very much set up that inhibit a lot of the innovation that could be occurring right now. And we need to break down some of those barriers, get better access to smarter grids and water networks that can work interrelatedly with buildings and precincts to actually make it less reliant on external infrastructure, more reliant on what we can generate and use internally within communities. In terms of designing individual buildings, particularly holistically across a whole lot of areas of sustainability, we're very good and up there with most, and in the best. Where we probably lack is in specific technology in building. We're not as good as applying that more broadly across our markets. Particularly Europe has always been the leader in many eyes, and probably still is legitimately. Taking a broader community approach to renewable energy, district systems and so on has been a much greater part of what Europe does for a long time. And we're still a long way behind in that thinking in terms of putting that in place, but we are starting to learn quite quickly. And we will tend to do things quite aggressively when we do actually start taking them into our normal design practice.